Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Myrna Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Wade Lightheart, author, athlete, nutritionist, and expert on fixing digestion. And Wade and I are going to talk today on the topic biohacking health, digestion, and aesthetics for performance. Welcome, Wade.
Great to be here. I'm excited to be on the show.
Yes, I'm excited to talk to you. I've been using your products for a while and I know that they're great. So I'm glad to share you and your product line with my listeners. All right, guys. So let me introduce Wade. Wade Lightheart is a three-time Canadian national all-natural bodybuilding champion who competed as a vegetarian. He's a former Mr. Universe competitor, host of the Awesome Health podcast, and one of the world's premier authorities on natural nutrition and training methods. Having majored in sports science at the University of New Brunswick, he has authored numerous books on health, nutrition, and exercise, which have sold in over 80 countries. Wade also serves as an advisor to the American Anticancer Institute and is the co-founder and president of BiOptimizers, a digestive and health optimization company. He's been in the health industry for over 25 years, coached thousands of clients, and is sought out by athletes and high-performance-oriented individuals worldwide for his advice on how to optimize their health and fitness levels. After competing in Mr. Universe and his health failing him following a competitive victory, Wade began to search for answers. In the process, he learned so much about what makes digestion works, along with other principles that form what he calls awesome health. All right, so that was a great synopsis of what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm curious because I've had a lot of people on the show talk about protein from plant nutrition. And I think that the way we should ease into our conversation today is maybe get an understanding from you for the vegetarians that are listening. How hard is it to become a champion bodybuilder as a vegetarian? That's what I want to say.
Well, 20 years ago, when I decided to employ, and it was almost getting close to 25, it was very difficult because there weren't a lot of options. And so I want to back up a little bit because I also don't want to make this exclusive for vegetarians because there are universal principles which are applied to all areas of dietary selection. We wrote a book on this called The Ultimate Nutrition Bible because we're dietary agnostic. Matt, my business partner, is a keto guy. I'm a plant-based guy. We've done It Fits Your Macros. I was a raw foodist. He was a carnivore. We've covered the whole spectrum. Okay. But right now in our society, there's 100 million people a day suffering from digestive issues. So that's bloating, indigestion, acid reflux, the feeling like a stone, breakouts from eating something, migraine headaches, brain fog, constipation, and diarrhea. All of those are part and parcel to living in the modern world because we have all of these elements which are disrupting our digestion. Now, I discovered this in 2003 inadvertently as an athlete competing at the Mr. Universe. What had happened is I had gone through a whole, I won't bore you with all the details, a long journey as an athlete. And I said, everybody says you can't make it as a vegetarian, but I'm going to try it to see if I can find some universal principles. I'm a bit of a rebellious conceptual person. It's like, is that really true? I'm going to go test it. And I applied what I called a bodybuilding mentality onto what was part and parcel in that industry to a vegetarian diet. And I was able to have aesthetic success. And so I won my shows and I went to the Mr. Universe and stuff. I don't have the genetics really to win the world championships, but I can get there. There's just some people that are just, God-given amazing, right? That wasn't me. That wasn't me. Yeah, exactly. And so after the contest, I gained 42 pounds of fat and water in 11 weeks.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I went from Mr. Universe to Mr. Marshmallow. And I was like, what happens? Like, I've got all the discipline. I'm doing everything right. I'm following everything. I've got, like what this should be happening. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. They might not be competing in a Mr. Universe or something, but they're following the diet, they're counting their calories, they're eating what they're supposed to be doing, and they're not losing weight, or they're feeling bloated, or they're tired and lethargic. And here's their guru advocating this thing, and like, what's the deal? And so I got lucky. I met a doctor who was the picture of Cedar Citizen. Like, he looked like he was straight out of the casting of Cocoon or something. This guy was just this vibrant, senior citizen, late 70s, maybe early 80s. And he was a powerhouse of strength, power, vitality, energy, cognition. I was like, wow, I want to be like this guy. And so he started teaching us about what had gone wrong in the modern food supply and how this has disrupted our digestion. And he was talking about things like enzymes and things about probiotics and hydrochloric acid and how things cross the intestinal barrier.
Mm.
But this was revolutionary back then. Nobody was talking about this. So Matt and I went to the seminar. I was like, well, like, if we really want to be advocates for health and vitality, we were both top personal trainers in the world, had big followings. We said, let's embrace it. So we did his program. And not only did it fix my issue, I got my body back, I got my fitness back, I got my health back. But when that whole process took about 6 months. And at the 6 months mark, I felt better than I'd ever felt in my life. Where prior to the contest, I felt like the worst. Even though I looked a certain way, I didn't feel a certain way. Now I looked a certain way and I felt a certain way. So Matt and I began experimenting with people from all over the world that were buying our education programs. And we were in there doing experiments to see what would actually work. And that's where we ended up producing our first product, which was Masszymes, which has been around now for 20 years. It's a premium digestive enzymatic formulation in the world. But what's cool about those people is it took us about 4 years, and I had found some universal principles of how you produce what we call healthy high performance. I give away a course called the Awesome Course that you kind of referred to, which stands for what are the tenets that you have to focus on in order, and I'll run them briefly. Air, water, exercise. None of that really costs any money, so no one talks about it. Sunlight, right? And then you get into what we call optimizers, the things that optimize cellular function, with this enzymes, probiotics, vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, essential amino acids, and herbs. Those are the elements that will make you strong or make you weak if you don't have them. And then you get into mindset, which you could probably put first, but it would screw up the acronym. And then education, testing, and coaching, etc. That's what the E stands for. And what does that mean? Education to learn from within. To learn from within, you run a test. And from the tests, you can get the results. But the fastest way to get to where you want to go is hire a coach that's already ran the gamut, so you don't have to do all the experimentation like I did and spend years spinning your wheels, because oftentimes we just don't have time to do that.
Right.
And so ultimately, that's where the formula came in. And then we started solving digestive issues. I went back to the World Championships in 2007. I did it on only 85 grams of protein a day because I had maximized my protein conversion. And that's a key aspect of digestion, and didn't have the problems after the contest. So I knew at that point I could take this to a greater market, to the world. And we've been broadcasting that signal for many years. And then we developed a lab to develop products specifically for the different types of dietary choices that people make, and what are the solutions so that their digestion goes well. Because 12% of the emergency hospital visits today are gastrointestinal related things. That's like heart attacks are like 25%. So it's half of heart attacks. And so many people are on prescription medication that really is disruptive for their health. And so we feel that we have options to reverse and change that, that story.
I like that story. I like that story. Now, I'm going to circle back to something that you said that I think it's amazing. So you said that as a bodybuilder, you had reached your 85 grams of protein. So first of all, how did you get 85 grams of protein per day as a vegetarian? Were you eating beans? Tofu? First of all, what were you eating to get that? And then the flip side of that, you can answer, why is it that our maximum is 85 grams? Two-part
So
question.
so actually that was a minimum. So when
Oh,
in '03 when I went, I was supplementing with different protein powders and tried to vary them everything from whey protein, pea protein, hemp protein. I'm going down the list, right? So pea would make you a lacto vegetarian, which means that you'd have dairy products.
mhm.
And then if you're a lacto ovo would mean that you would have eggs. I wasn't having eggs at the time. I eat eggs and dairy, as I say, recreationally. Like if I go out with my friends and have a pizza, or I'm traveling on the road and I have some eggs, they're just not part of my normal diet. There's no projection or idea that anybody should do this. But when I did the experimentation on optimizing my digestion, when I went to the Mr. Universe, it was 1 gram per pound of body weight was the
Mhm.
general consensus, and maybe a little bit more because of satiety. Protein is very, it's satiety means it makes you feel full and it takes a
Mhm.
lot of calories to burn. So bodybuilders use it as part of their strategy to lower the appetite
Mhm.
and to burn more energy so that you can lose weight faster.
Mhm.
Okay, fitness competitors do the same thing. I figured this whole weight thing out a long time ago. It's not a confusion. So I was like, well, I'm taking that much food in, I'm taking 250 grams of food. How much is actually being converted into the amino acids that my body's going to use to build my muscles and make my neurotransmitters and all that stuff? And what I had learned is that any undigested protein in the body now becomes feed for bad bacteria.
Mhm.
And you get a bacteria condition. So what happens is you have a microbiome, which is, I always say it's 10% good, 10% bad, 80% opportunist. These are the bacteria cultures. We live in a symbiotic relationship. So if we don't have these bacteria, sometimes called gut flora or biome, your microbiome, if we don't have them, we're dead. Like we need these to live. And but not all of those guys are good. And so if you are not properly getting your protein digested, what happens is this undigested protein feeds bad bacteria.
Mhm.
And you wake up in the morning and you have crust in your eyes, or you have bad breath,
Mhm.
or that you have really smelly stools. That's a
Wow.
good indication that there's a disruption in your bacteria. Now, if you've gone to a bodybuilding gym at any point in time, you know there's some disrupted guts. Okay. But they're very high in protein. So when I
Wow.
went through optimizing my own digestion, I wanted to see what was the minimal amount I needed in overall protein to achieve the same result. And I got to 85 grams. Now, keep in mind, I was 35 back then. I'm 52 now. When I went back to the Olympia a couple of years ago at a world championship 50 to see if I could do it again, I needed about 120 grams because just my protein um, synthesis at the cellular level, my hormone levels are not the same as they were back then. I'm not augmenting with any hormones to distort the information. So there is a general need for increase in protein as we get older because our capability to convert it is less. And what happens is people tend to eat less because they don't feel good on the protein because they can't break it down. And that's like any other food, any other food. So, anyways, long story
What
short,
an education right here.
what's
I
that?
never heard
Yes.
this before.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
obviously not in the bodybuilding space. That's amazing. I always thought undigested protein turns to fat. That's not true.
no, so if you have or unused protein, so here's the thing: there's undigested and unused.
Okay.
So if you unused, for example, you can create glycogenesis, which is you're basically converting the protein into sugars, which is an inefficient form of energy, but
Mhm.
it does work. And theoretically, you could increase your fat. Now, some people have suggested that by just doing inexpensive whey proteins of low quality, that a lot of that can be converted into sugar and then be stored as fat. But
Mhm.
as a general rule, if you keep your calories below what you're burning, you're good. And
You
you can
good?
have a significant variance. The challenge is when you're consuming simple carbohydrates versus, say, proteins or fats or fibers. Okay, so each has an advantage of protein is king because it's hard to digest, takes a lot of energy, and keeps you satiated. That's why protein is the focus of anyone trying to get lean.
Mm-hmm.
Carbohydrates give you energy quickly, but have a higher propensity to be stored as body fat. So,
Mm-hmm.
what people who want to manage their weight do is they stack protein and carbohydrates together. So you lower the speed of the sugar coming into the system, and you
Mm-hmm.
stack amino acids, and that releases your insulin, and the amino acids get driven into the muscles and into the cells and into the liver. If it's one or the other, one, you don't have enough carbohydrates and you can crash out. The other one, you have too much carbs and you store as body fat. Now, there's a whole other group like the ketogenic followers who said, no, we're going to cut out carbs completely because we can't manage it. And that's true for a lot of people. They become so insulin resistant that they just, if they eat sugar, it goes, they look at the pie and they go, get fat. Right? You know, it's just like they can't seem to manage that despite what's happening. That's an insulin issue. So they
Mm-hmm.
switched to a ketogenic diet, which is what my business partner did, which is a high fat, relatively low protein content. And so what happens, your body starts burning fat and then it resets your insulin sensitivity. And he does it cyclically. So he'll do keto for maybe 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 20 weeks, and then he'll introduce some carbs in for maybe a couple of months and he comes back. Some people stay keto all the time. It was developed for people with epilepsies to reduce seizures and is very powerful for that. And
Wow.
then so fats, the only thing is with fats, you can't eat that much fats because it's so calorie dense. It does have a satiety factor. The other element is you want to have very clean fats because if
Mm-hmm.
you are eating, the trans fatty acids and, hyper processed seed oils and stuff, well, those calories will cause other problems inside of the body that
Wow.
could offset your digestion and trigger genetic responses if you have suboptimal genetics for that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So those different schools we cover in the book so that people have a wide diversity.
Yeah,
So
I'm
yeah, so
listening to
hopefully that helpful.
you. How do we know all this stuff? I mean, I'm glad I called the topic biohacking because that's what we're talking about here, biohacking. So that's in your book. I don't think I mentioned a book here. So make sure you let
Yeah,
us
the
know.
Ultimate Nutrition Bible. We
Okay.
cover all the different diet strategies. And so you just say, I like doing this one. You don't have to read most of the book. You just turn to the chapters that's important to you, and then you understand the mechanics to optimize your health.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Wow, that's good information. Good information. All right. So you mentioned just now when we were talking, you went through it very quickly. So maybe we can you saying that you understand what makes digestion work and you were just
Yes.
explaining that. But you also say there's 5 stages of digestion.
Yep.
Can you go through that? What are the five
Yes.
stages?
Yeah. And this all makes sense when you think about it. So the first stage is the preparation phase. Taste, the smell. Your body will start to salivate, with your favorite meal or whatever. There's a enzymatic response inside of the body that's saliva. Um, you, if you, what's interesting in India, for example, in the East, they like to use their hands to eat food because they believe that there's electrical energies in each one of your 5 different electrical energies in the body according to the 5 senses.
Mm.
And I go, well, that sounds kind of crazy. But then you think, what is the most popular foods in America? Finger foods, burgers, fries, pizza, chips, because there's a textile aspect to it, right? And a good chef can texturize the food. They know by the texture. So they're
Mhm.
picking up another sensory aspect beyond the visual or beyond the taste. There's a texture factor. And I do believe there's a sensory effect. So that's why restaurants put dim lighting because we want to get into a rest relax place. We want to have music. We don't want to have distractions with TVs and all that sort of stuff because that puts us in the rest and digest versus, the fight or flight. So if you're
Okay.
eating on the road, you're eating on the run, you're eating out of delivery places or, fast food clinics, or you're grabbing things and driving and all that stuff, that's suboptimal for your digestion. And what
Mhm.
happens is you have too much cortisol in the system, which disrupts the natural digestive process in the body. Common. Second stage, we masticate. So then we start chewing our food. The food goes down the esophagus, and that's just the tube from your mouth to your stomach. And one of the things I want to share with people about the whole digestive process is It's a single tube from your mouth to your butt. So the food is in that tube. You've got to get the food into your body. We think that once we've eaten it, it's in our body. No, no, no. It's got to go through this process. So once it goes down to the upper cardiac portion of the stomach, you've got 30 to 60 minutes where the natural enzymes present in the food would start breaking that down in the high temperature of your body and in that moist environment. But here's the kicker. We're the only species on the planet that eats enzymatically deficient food. Because if you cook, if you pasteurize, if you irradiate, if you sterilize, any of those things that we do to our modern food production center, we destroy the enzymes. Now that has a preservation effect on the food. So we can store food for extensive times. We can do all these things with food, which is great, but we don't have those enzymes. So what our body has to do is recognize and determine what enzymes it needs to produce in our liver and deliver it either from our pancreas or from our gallbladder. Pancreas would be like carbohydrate stuff. Gallbladder stuff would be fats. And then, of course, our liver with proteins. Now, but that pre-digestion stage has been missed. And that can be problematic later on. So after that, what happens is a chemical called hydrochloric acid, HCl, is released into the stomach. Now, what that does is two things. Number one, it disinfects bugs, viruses, pathogens, parasites, whatever. If you have enough hydrochloric acid levels, you will kill all those things. The other thing that it does is it starts to change the pH of your meal to more acidic. And when it does that, some enzymatic reactions cease and some become activated, particularly on the proteolytic side of things. So you'll see things on a high quality enzyme will have protease 6 and protease 4.5 and protease 3.0. Why? That's designed to break down protein in the different stages of that acid environment. So disinfects and assists in the breaking down of your food. Then your body, before it leaves the stomach, your body releases this cool thing called bicarbonate buffers. Well, that's just a fancy name for alkaline minerals like calcium and magnesium. That buffers those acids, takes that pH from acid back up closer to neutral, and then the food goes into your intestinal tract. Now remember that group I told you about, the 10% good, 10% bad, 80% opportunists. Right. So the symbiotic relationship with these bacteria or probiotics or flora or microbiome, they often turns all these things in the gastrointestinal tract, they'll do the final stage of converting that into either the energy units or the building blocks that we need. And depending on the food, which is really cool, these bacteria might make antioxidants. They could do all kinds of cool things if you feed them properly. It's very interesting. We have a lab in Bosnia that we've got like 20 PhDs and master students that have built a digestive system, and they run these tests, and we can see what happens when you do different things with it, with different products, different raws, different bacterias, different mediums. It's really fun. And then you see what actually happens. And then you see if what they produce gets actually delivered into the cells of your body. And that's where the rubber hits the road as far as does something actually work and deliver it in. And then the final stage is the elimination phase. Now, that food is moved through what's called peristaltic contraction, which is a smooth muscle contraction, which moves the food all through the body and out. Now, where people have problems, there's several areas. Number one, they don't have enough enzymes. As we get older, we produce less enzymes. If you go back to Enzymes for Health and Longevity, Dr. Edward Howell, or Enzyme Nutrition, he stated that the life of any animal is inversely related to the enzyme bank account it has. Now, it's true if you go to your doctor and say, well, you produce enzymes. That's true. But if you consume extra enzymes, you free up your enzymatic capacity to do all these other things. Enzymes are involved for everything from thinking to blinking. There's over 25,000 of them to make your eyes work, to make yourself talk, to make yourself think. I call it from thinking to blinking, covers everything. You have they're catalysts that speed up results. And one of the reasons why people slow down or don't recover as well as they get older is they don't have enough of these enzymes to make things crank. So we address that. Second, you don't have enough hydrochloric acid. So for
Mhm.
hydrochloric acid, this is coming. What do people get? Acid reflux and heartburn. They said, well, I'm taking an antacid for that. Why would I need hydrochloric acid? Well, the reason is if you don't have enough hydrochloric acid, now part of that's genetic, part of that's diet, and part of that's hydration.
Mhm.
If for whatever reason one of those things are off, what happens is you don't have enough hydrochloric acid. There's a little sphincter at the top of your stomach, and it's called the esophageal sphincter. That pops open as the food ferments in your stomach. The gas releases it, and then some of that acid comes up and creates heartburn, acid reflux. Now, the
Mhm.
doctor or the pharmacist over the counter, they just give you a drug to block the acid. But if you look at the pharmaceutical drugs, you're only supposed to be on those for 6 to 8 weeks because they cause more problems than they do. And that's why it progresses into other gastrointestinal issues.
Right.
There's an easy test for this, by the way. You take a quarter teaspoon of baking soda, put it in 4 ounces of water on an empty stomach, drink it. If you burp within 5 minutes, you got enough hydrochloric acid. If you don't, you need hydrochloric acid. And most people will need it at some time. There's also a cross correlation with H. pylori overgrowth. So you can get a test that if you have H. pylori overgrowth, that can also disrupt your acid production, and that can be treated with medication. It also, a lot of people will take high doses of hydrochloric acid for 90 days in order to alleviate that. So then finally, the last piece of the puzzle is, do you have the right bacteria in your intestines for the diet that you're having? So if you took a sample of, say, the bacteria cultures in my gut versus Matt, my business partner, he's on a ketogenic diet. He's going to have a completely different microbiome than me on
Mhm.
a plant-based diet. I do believe that different people respond to different types of diets. They're
Mhm.
predisposed either by bacteria, enzymes, genetics, and a combination of those three, that they might do better on chicken and rice. Some people do better on, tuna and potatoes. That's why I'm dietary agnostic, because I've seen so much variance in the population. What I do know is that if you get yourself healthier, you have sufficient amount of enzymes, hydrochloric acid, and the right probiotics relative to your diet, what tends to happen is people have a greater range of the dietary choices they like to enjoy as opposed to a smaller range. And of course, as you get healthier, so for example, someone might go on a ketogenic diet. They need lipolytic enzymes, they need proteolytic enzymes, they need high hydrochloric acid because it's hard to digest foods. They might stay on that because they've been insulin sensitive, and they do that for a year. And all of a sudden, they have their insulin sensitivity back. So then they can start introducing more carbohydrates back into the diet gently and gradually because their digestive system is fixed. And ultimately, I do believe health is most flexibility. So, yeah. And then it is possible in your digestive system. And if you're having problems with constipation, diarrhea, or poor urination as well, because that's an elimination process, it's not really digestion, it's an elimination process, but it's related. It is possible that you have a vertebrae that is out in one place that's putting pressure on the nerve that runs the peristaltic contraction. So in some cases,
Elimination,
people
right?
will get a good adjustment from a chiropractor or something like that, and bingo, their digestion comes back on. So that is a small percentage, but it is out there. And that what I've just explained to you, your listeners now understand digestion better than 99% of the world and can solve almost any digestive problem without
Yeah.
combination.
Oh my gosh, that was thorough. I love your answers to questions. That's incredibly thorough. You're not a doctor, are you?
I'm not a doctor. I'm just a guy that's dealt with a
Speak
lot of
like
people with a
one.
lot of
You know
problems.
your stuff. That's amazing. All right. So I have used your products, and I know you guys sent me the enzymes. So there's enzymes, there's prebiotics, there's probiotics, and then there's something called PM. What is it?
P-Throwing. Yeah.
Right, PM. So let's put this conversation back to the majority of the people that are listening. They're eating everything.
Yep.
They're not a vegetarian, they're not in
Yep.
ketogenics, they're
A
carnivores.
fooditarian. They're eating
Is that what
food.
you call them?
Yeah.
Fooditarian. So if we're going to simplify all of that, should they get enzymes first? where is the prebiotics going or helping them? Where's the probiotics going? And so why do you guys have four products? I mean, you probably have
Yes.
more, but four that I know of to handle this digestion issue. Why? And
Yes.
what are they all doing?
The easiest answer to solve that is on any meal, three enzymes, one hydrochloric acid, two probiotics, two P3OMs. That will break down any meal from any dietary strategy, good, bad, or absolutely ugly. Okay. Like it'll break down,
All right, you got the
trans fatty
enzymes,
fried chicken and
the
grease. It'll break
hydrochloric.
down a salad. It'll break down birthday cake. It'll
Okay,
break down a burger at the
okay,
restaurant, eggs,
I got
whatever. We do have variations on the enzymes because if you're ketogenic, we make an enzyme formulation for ketogenic. You're a vegetarian, but Masszymes has 17 different enzymes. I call it enzymes for the masses. That product will fix pretty much any digestive issue for most people, but we do have a lot of hyper specialized folks
you.
that get into this and they really they're very limited with their health conditions and they want these special products because it's a little bit better for their chosen diet. For the general person, Masszymes, three Masszymes, two P3Ms, that's a proteolytic probiotic. And so that will make sure that you break down any undigested proteins and you don't get the crusty eyes, the brain fog, the bad breath, or the bad stool smell. And then the hydrochloric acid will make sure that you wipe out any bugs, parasites, or anything else. A lot of people can drop the HCl after about 90 days.
Okay.
Most times, and that's if they have a little bit of an H. pylori overgrowth, the hydrochloric acid tends to knock that out in about 90 days.
Well, I've never taken HCl, but I do take probiotics. So you were talking about the second stage of digestion, where that's where the enzymes go. So are the prebiotics and the probiotics for the third stage
Yeah,
of
well, actually,
digestion?
yeah. So it's actually for the stage where the bacteria cultures are. So prebiotics,
Uh-huh.
what a prebiotic is that's food for probiotics.
Oh,
That's all it is. A lot of them go off particular fibers. So at our lab, what we did is we started looking at all the different bacteria cultures out there, all of the bacteria cultures that people need but don't have, and what those bacteria cultures actually eat. What do they need in order to survive?
mm,
It's fascinating. It's really cool. And you start to learn that you could take the same bacteria and you put one fiber or you put a different fiber and they grow and develop completely differently. So they work better on some foods and not others. Most bacteria cultures, though, work on cellulose or carbohydrates. P3M does very well on proteins. That's what makes it very unique. Now, we do have some other bacteria cultures like cognibiotics. So people who have challenges with low mood, well, typically they don't have enough of the bacteria cultures that make a neurochemical called serotonin. Serotonin is what makes you feel good. If you got
yeah.
high serotonin, so for people who are upbeat and positive, usually they actually produce a lot more serotonin than the general public, and they have the bacteria cultures, and those bacteria cultures have the right prebiotics, their diets all concordant, either naturally or genetically or whatever. So what we found is you could put together a thing called cognibiotics, several different strains of bacteria, put them with the right prebiotics, throw in a little magnesium because magnesium helps with your neurotransmitters production. And guess what? People started to feel happier and in a better mood all the time. Like, how's that possible? Because your gut and your brain are connected.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
And you'll
yeah.
see like you get a gut feeling that doesn't feel right. Something makes you feel squeamish that you don't want to see. You get that sense. That's because your brain, that impact, stress impacts your gut. Getting in a car accident impacts your gut. Being in a threatening situation impacts your gut. And that changes your neurochemistry because they work symbiotically together.
Right. Wow. All right. So that was a thorough explanation about diet, I mean, digestion. But I also know that one of your main products is the magnesium breakthrough, which I have used. I find it spectacular. Um, and that has to do with sleep. So how does sleep affect that whole process that you just talked about? And then we can talk about what your magnesium breakthrough, you mentioned it a minute ago that the your gut needs magnesium. I think that's what you said, or the what do you call it? The bacteria needs magnesium. So why do we need magnesium? How is sleep intertwined with the magnesium breakthrough product?
Yeah. So magnesium, I call it the miracle mineral, and it's involved in well over 300 processes in the body. It's essentially, I learned about magnesium way back once again in bodybuilding accidentally because as bodybuilders would get on stage, they dehydrate themselves so that the
Mm.
skin gets very thin and sticks to the muscles so they can
And they
show all the
get
definition.
puffed, right?
Right. But what happens if you get that a little bit too much, you get cramping.
Mm.
Women would know this if they're not properly hydrated, they get PMS. Well, what's
Mm.
actually happening is there's a disbalance between they don't have enough magnesium inside of the body, and magnesium is the relaxation molecule. So you have these little channels in the cell and everything, and so magnesium is what makes a muscle relax, smooth
Mm.
muscle and striated muscle. So smooth muscle is like in our internal organs, and striated muscle is the muscles that we lift and when they say feel your biceps, that's a striated muscle, or flex your legs. So what happens? Magnesium is involved in neurotransmitter production for our brain. It's involved in regulating our heartbeats. It's in regulating our calcium levels in our bones because we have a high diet in calcium and a low diet in magnesium. The problem in North America is because we went to conventional farming with all of these adjuncts, fertilizers, and pesticides and herbicides and fungicides and all this sort of stuff over the last 100 years, we've stripped the magnesium out of our diet. So we don't have enough. And then we fortify with calcium. And
Mm.
calcium and magnesium in a 2-to-1 ratio. And we need calcium for our bones and a variety of other things. So what happens is if we don't have enough magnesium, we start dumping calcium to try and get the ratio back. And so what we're saying is, no, 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 we want to increase magnesium, and that's going to upregulate all of these metabolic processes. Now, the first thing people notice oftentimes is like, wow, I'm sleeping a lot better. I don't
Yeah.
know why. Well, that's because you weren't actually, your body wasn't actually properly relaxing. There's
Mm.
another element, EMF radiation. So because, we're living in the world with phones and internet and Wi-Fi and satellites and all this stuff, we're being bombarded with these frequencies. And this tends to disrupt or require more magnesium in order to offset the frequency that's stimulating our bodies. And so when people take magnesium, like, oh, I feel so much more relaxed. Oh, my phone doesn't bother me. Oh, I don't have headaches. Magnesium is also creates vasodilation. So your arteries and blood flow, if it opens up, that's vasodilation. You get more blood flow to your brain.
Mm.
People who have migraines oftentimes have a food that triggers an inflammatory response, and the veins contract, and
Mm.
they contract, and that limits the blood flow, and then they don't get oxygen, and then they get a headache.
That's right.
Okay, so
Right.
that's where these things start to happen. And magnesium just covers so many things. Blood sugar regulation. It's involved particularly with First Nations folks because they didn't have a lot of sugar and carbohydrates in their diet previously. Um, they're predisposed to diabetes, um, and their magnesium content can really help them and manage their blood sugar as well. So it's involved in so many different things.
Yeah.
And
I
yeah,
heard that before. I mean, I always thought that magnesium was, I don't know what I thought, but then when I heard someplace, I'm not quite sure it was if I heard that from your company or what, but I did hear that magnesium. No, I saw it on the internet that it regulates almost every system in the body, like you said, a whole bunch of it. So it's actually quite good. Now, I didn't know that there were 7 types of it, and that's basically what your magnesium breakthrough has.
yep.
So, why is there 7 types of magnesium? Are these types, targeting different functions, or we need them all?
Yes. So it's really interesting. So a couple things happened. So I find things by screwing things up and then figuring out how to get myself unscrewed.
Okay.
So what
Very
happened? I was living all over the world, running several different companies, um, not sleeping very much, training like a maniac, drinking lots of coffee and all things like that. And I was noticing I couldn't drink coffee anymore. I was becoming overstimulated. It didn't bother me, and I couldn't think. My memory was dropping, and so I did a brain scan, and I did a series of tests. And in the brain scan, I had a brain of a 75-year-old man. And I was
Mhm.
like, this sucks. And it feels like my brain is working like a 75-year-old man. I got to fix this. The second thing, when I did a SpectraCell test, which is kind of the state of the art test on magnesium levels, it said that I was deficient in magnesium. Now, I was taking magnesium regularly because I knew you couldn't get enough. And I thought, whoa, well, what's going on here? I'm taking the recommended daily allowance for this. So I'm taking this, decent brand of magnesium. So I dove into it and I found a guy by the name of Charles Poliquin, who was one of the world's best Olympic coaches and spoke 13 different languages. So he could read the research in different languages. Very interesting guy. And he was using 4 different types of magnesium with
Mhm.
his Olympic athletes. And he taught Olympic athletes, and I think it was 32 different sports, gold medalists in 2 different sports. That's unheard
Wow.
of. And I was like,
Nice.
wow. So I talked to Matt and we were like, well, which magnesium are best? I'm like, I don't know. So we just bought them all. We bought every magnesium on the market. And then this is graphic, but we started taking them. And there's a thing in orthomolecular nutrition, which was developed by Linus Pauling, Dr. David Hawkins, and Dr. Abram Hoffer, about how to treat various conditions using nutrition.
Mhm.
They were doing schizophrenia and stuff back in the 70s. Amazing. Anyways, so they had this theory that in order to get saturation of a molecule, you had to take it until you get the runs, because that was called breaking the gastrointestinal. Now, magnesium is one of those, it's really that way. So you can take it and you go to, so we spent about 30 days on the toilet testing all these magnesiums at what level. And the funny part was when we
Mhm.
started combining them, we could take more magnesium.
Mhm.
So we settled upon a bunch of different magnesiums, and then we sent it off to the lab to start doing. So we did some rough research, and then we sent it off to the lab to figure out how much a person needs. Now, I needed mega doses for a while to reverse my brain condition, which I successfully did, and got
Mhm.
my brain operating. Took me about 6 months to get right on track. That's 6 months again. I don't know why that is,
Mhm.
but we found that people produced a better result if they combined a bunch of different magnesiums than a single magnesium. Why this is, we have some theories. It's not proven. These are theories. Part of it is magnesium, when you said magnesium orotate or malate or citrate or bisglycinate or all these different names that you'll have, what the heckalate, that's just referring to what the magnesium is bonded to, so it's stable. But that's going to change the molecular weight and molecular size. And by that size, we believe that it's absorbed in some parts of the body and not in other parts of the body. That's our rough theory. It's not proven. But what we
Mhm.
do know is when you hit all 7 of the best magnesiums, people tend to respond better on the same dosage than if they were just using a single or a couple strains of magnesium. And that's why we've become the number one magnesium brand in the world, I think, because everybody's like, wow, your magnesium feels
Sure.
different. It works different.
Yeah.
We also
Yeah.
have some precursors because we have those digestive tissue. We knew so much about digestion with our microbiology lab. We found out there are little elements that we could add to the magnesium so that you get more magnesium in the cells where you need it and not in the toilet where you don't. And so that's what so that's why we've done so well with that magnesium. But people notice sleep first,
Yeah.
second, an overall sense of calmness, a better resistant to stress, better resistant stimulation, a reduction of muscle strains, cramps, restless leg syndrome, all of those things. Those are indications you don't have enough magnesium, and a lot of those things just tend to go away when you get your magnesiums back together.
Yeah. And there's also the heart. It works with the heart too. How does it help with the heart?
Yeah, so magnesium also sets the regulation of, how people need a pacemaker, or you might have seen high performance athletes dying
Yeah.
Suddenly, they don't know why. They think that a lot of them do because they lose so much magnesium in their sweat that
Mm.
they have a disruption in the heart rhythm and they don't set that firing of their pace. So magnesium is a big key element on that process. And so for a
Right.
healthy heart, magnesium, in fact, one of the doctors in the UK, Sanjay Gupta, not the one in the US, the one in, he's a heart doctor,
Mhm.
he puts his patients on all that are scheduled for surgery on magnesium. And he's like, about 25% of them don't need the surgery afterwards.
Yeah.
Just trade just the magnesium. It's that important.
Yeah, I was just talking to my sister who's a registered nurse, and she has problems sleeping. And she was mentioning that she didn't want to take melatonin all the time. So she used
Correct.
magnesium for sleep. So, yeah, I'll tell her definitely about your products so she can get the best magnesium because she's probably just buying a drugstore brand. But
Hmm.
so that's amazing. All right. Well, Wade, this has been a fantastic conversation. I've been doing this for a long time and I've spoken to a lot of experts and I've not gotten the detail that I've gotten from you today. I mean, I understand digestion.
Great. That was my goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know about what happens in your mouth and what happens in elimination, but I did not know the middle there. So that's amazing. So all right, so we've talked about four of your products, right? So do you want to talk about any of your other products that BioOptimizer has to help with digestion, sleep, or anything that we missed?
Well, we've got blood sugar breakthrough or renaming berberine breakthrough. For people who are struggling with their blood sugar management, that product is absolutely killer. It's not a big seller for us because people don't know about it that much, but I think anybody that is looking to regulate their blood sugar levels, which is a big
It's
problem
better
in
than
North America.
metformin, the standard drug. That's what I.
Yes. Better is a funny thing to say. There's some evidence that metformin is not that good for you over the long term. And so I think anytime that you can do a natural product over medication, I can't prescribe medication or I can't comment that, or I'm not a doctor. But I do know that Doctor Sense tells me if I can take something in an herb or a plant or something, it's probably better than taking a drug because a drug extracts mostly from plants, but it takes away the elements that balance it out. So the jury is kind of mixed on like it was big on metformin and now it's kind of going the other way, unfortunately.
All right.
I wouldn't tell anybody not to do that. So that's a great product. But, microbiome breakthrough. If you have leaky gut, um, I love that product. It tastes like frosting, and it fixes leaky gut in 24 hours. It's amazing. You can literally you take. I get up in the morning. I start every day with that. It's a cooling feeling. You went out that night and had those hot peppers and the hot sauce and everything. And the next morning you wake up and you got that kind of like I'm in fire, and it's like you literally take a scoop or two of microbiome breakthrough, and it's done in 30 minutes. Like you're like, oh, I feel a lot better. It's it's
Mhm.
it's remarkable. It's remarkable. I'm sensitive to spicy foods, so anytime I eat spicy foods, I notice it right away. And I go, oh, my dad, he can just eat all the spice he wants. I'm a little too sensitive. I guess I'm more like my mom. So but here's the best part about BiOptimizers. We have a great education program. We have a free course called Awesome Health, and I teach you all those principles I talked about. You mentioned earlier, Awesome Health. It's free. Give it away. We have a great book if you're really into the research, Ultimate Nutrition. It's a 500 and some page, well researched book that allows you to be successful on any diet. If you want to I find that as like an encyclopedia that you can go to and understand these things. And then our company gives 100% money back guarantee on every one of our products. Why? I'm in this game for my whole life. And there's about 5% of the companies in the natural health space that are founder led, started with someone with a problem, fixed their problem, and took it out to the world, and they're awesome. And then there's what I'd call 95% of white label parasites that hear about a thing on the news. They create a product. They don't know if it works. It's a mishmash of maybes. Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't. They don't care. It's built on margin. They run it out. They sell it like crazy with outrageous claims, and it doesn't work for people. And then people throw the whole supplement industry under the bus. And I can see why. Doctors will condemn it. That doesn't work. And they're all right. And so what we said is we're trying to set the standard for all of the best nutrition companies to offer 100% 365-day guarantee. You have a whole year, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if something you tried didn't work for you, we want to give you your money back because your money is hard earned. I'm from a very poor family. And I knew that like I used to save up all my money to buy like one bottle of protein or something like every month. I was like so excited. And if it didn't work, I was so disappointed. And I didn't want that for anybody to feel. And we have real people on the phone, real people on the email, real people on the text message, on the chat. It's not robots and machines. It's real people talking to you that can help you solve your problems. And then I answer every single question that comes into the company about our products and services.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, I see passion. I see dedication. I see that you're proud of what you created. So that's amazing. All right. So how can, what's your website? What's your social media handle? And did you have an offer for the listeners?
Yeah, so our site is we basically, if anybody wants to try any of our products, they can go bioptimizers.com/transform. You put in transform into the code, you get an instant 10% off. And if you buy in bulk, you get even a better discount on side of that. Bioptimizers, all the social media handles, what are we're on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and all those sort of things. And
Just the
they
name of the
take
company,
videos of
right?
me when I'm blabbering away and they put them up there for people. I don't know how all that stuff works very well, but they do it for me and I'm really grateful. And
Right.
we take in the information from everybody so that we can better serve people. I love this business. I love changing. I fell in love with changing people's lives. Both Matt and I as personal trainers and nutritionists. It's the greatest business to be in it. And we're here for the long term to help people get healthier and happier and so that they can contribute their unique things into the world without suffering.
Yes, yes. Like I said, I've used your products. I've used the enzyme. I've used the PM one, and I've used the probiotics, and I know they all work. And I can testify that it's amazing brand. I'm gonna try the blood sugar one because I trouble with I have a right. I take metformin, so I'm gonna try
Yep.
that, and I'm also gonna try the HCl. I don't know if there's anything wrong with my HCl, but you said that we should take it,
Do the
right?
test. Quarter teaspoon of baking soda, 4 ounces
Mhm.
of water on an empty stomach, stir it up. If you burp in 5 minutes, you're good. You don't need it. If you don't,
Okay, so that's a test before I just start taking it
yeah.
automatically.
Yeah, save yourself
Oh,
some money if you
yes.
don't need it.
So, wow. Yes, I really enjoyed our conversation, Matt. I love learning. I am like a lifelong learner, and I sit here and I listen very attentively, and I'm walking away with some great information from our conversation. So, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for
Thank
being so
you.
passionate and being so detailed in your content. I'm sure that everyone that's listening is getting a lot from it. And like he says, definitely I will have a summary of my conversation with Wade on the show page, which is myhelps.us. I will link out to his book. I'll link out to his website. And of course, take advantage of the transform code to get 10% off. And he says if you buy in bulk, I'm assuming buy in bulk is several products or
Yeah,
three
or
or
they'll buy like 3 bottles or mix and match, or they'll buy,
which
or they get
match.
on a subscription
Okay.
or whatever to save
Right,
more,
right,
and they
right.
can even save
Yes,
them more
yes,
money.
yes. I love it, love it, love it. Yes. So this is what my intention for this show is to bring you quality guests and quality information so that you can live your best life right now, in health. And it starts with diet, it starts with nutrition. And if you can biohack your health and do certain things that will help you, Wade talked about, yeah, he went and got a brain scan when things started happening, and he figured out how to change that, and he changed that in 6 months. Some people would not do that, and then they're living a substandard life. So yes, you want to live a life that you have high energy, high digestion, and one of the things that we know is Deepak Chopra and Sadhguru, and because I follow the Indian. I like when you talked about why they eat with their hands, but I follow a lot of the Indian gurus And of
Me too.
course, the things, yeah, one of the things that they talk about is that you should eat raw food. And you mentioned that our food is, when you cook it and do all those different things, you take away all the enzymes. And I realize that's why, they're telling you to eat raw food. But one of the things that they say is the banana that you eat right now turns up as a muscle or something, because whatever you eat turns into something on your body. So yes, we've got to recognize that what we're eating, the end result is life, right? The end result is muscle. The end result is it's being transformed into something else. So that's why we eat food, and we can't live without it. So that's great. Awesome. All right, Wade. Well, listen, I totally enjoyed our conversation. As we wrap up, any last words?
Yes, everybody deserves to be healthy, and everybody has the capacity to be healthy if you want to put in the work, and the work is worth it. Just get rightly informed and never give up. Wherever you are, it can always get better. And
Yes.
that's why I'm so passionate about this. I figured this out. I want to share all of these insights with the world because I want everybody to be healthy. Because if you're healthy, everything in life is great. And if you're not healthy, no matter how great everything is in life, it sucks.
Yes.
So
Yes. Very, very true statement. Health is wealth, right?
sure is.
All right, guys. Well, listen, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Transform Your Mind so that you can transform your life. So today we're talking transforming your mind on digestion, transforming your mind on magnesium, and transforming your mind and on having a healthy body from the time you put something in your mouth. So what happens when it comes out of the other end? Learning about your system. So thank you, Wade, for being on the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, namaste.
Namaste.